Welcome to FOtalks. With me is our old friend, Josef Olmert. He is a regular author at Fair Observer. He has published numerous interviews and articles. He is indeed one of the top scholars on Israel. He has served in the defense ministry. He comes from a political family. He's an encyclopedia on Israel and the Middle East. And he has taken out time to interview with us on Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year. Well, Joseph, Shana Tova.
Thank you very much. Shana Tova to you, and the way you express the words Shana Tova and Rosh Hashanah, you deserve a medal.
You are just too kind, sir. So let's get cracking with a very difficult issue. And it's an issue that has caused jubilation in some quarters, consternation in others, and that is the combined recognition of Palestine by the Anglosphere, the old white Commonwealth, the UK, United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, Canada, and Australia. That happened on Sunday, if I believe correctly. Sunday, the 21st of September. And this was followed by France recognizing Palestine on Monday, the 22nd of September. What is the significance of the recognition of Palestine by the Anglosphere, and in particular by the old imperial powers of the United Kingdom and France?
Well, it's interesting that I read yesterday only that the British immediate reward from the Palestinians is that Mr. Abbas demands now £2 trillion of compensation from the imperial power. So maybe Keir Starmer got it wrong from his perspective. I don't know what the others will demand from France. Remember that Gaddafi in the old days demanded 7 trillion from the Italians. Look, what do you want me to tell you? I mean, it's bad days for Israel. There's no question about that. So at least I can take it with some humor. But no, look, in actual immediate terms, it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything, none whatsoever. But I emphasize in actual immediate terms. But it has two other meanings which are not good to Israel. One of them is the overall tide of public opinion, whether rightly or wrongly, I think wrongly, is against Israel. And the governments react in many ways according to what they consider to be their own best interests, which start with domestic politics. I mean, let's be honest about it. I mean, I remember that I used to see under Jeremy Corbyn, maybe less so now, in Labour Party conventions in England, there were more Palestinian flags than British flags. So it's become like a problem that a Labour Prime Minister had to pay back to his constituents. Or the same.
Basically, what you're saying is that Labour is catering to its Muslim vote and its liberal vote. That
not just Muslim. I
didn't finish. And the liberal vote, which has taken up Palestine as an anti-colonial liberation issue.
The TUC, the Trade Union Congress that used to be in the old days very pro-Israel, now it's the opposite and all this. But that's something that we have to bear in mind, that public opinion, by and large, seems to be moving against Israel. The other point about it is, and that's a more important one from a political perspective because it might have specific results, I can anticipate a lot of troubles happening from now on, on the ground. What happens when the British and the French and all these other countries that are not minute countries, opening consulates for the new state of Palestine? Well, what happens when they have to move through Israel? A lot of issues that we can't even think that can happen now, because the Israelis definitely would like to say to those governments, you can recognize whoever you want, but forget about any cooperation from us. And that is something that they will have to bear in mind. For example, if the Israelis will close their consulates in Jerusalem to prevent them from serving the Palestinians. And I can so go on like this, But
what you're saying is that, number one, public opinion is turning against Israel. And number two, as it seems.
Yeah.
Number two, this complicates relations between Israel
exactly.
and the recognizing country.
On numbers on a number of levels that could be very detrimental, because that might, on the one hand, it could speed up the negative processes against Israel, but it could also, and that's the other point here, it could also bring people back to their, I can say senses, but to second thoughts about all that, And what you saw in London, I guess, 2 weeks ago or last week.
Tommy Robinson.
Yeah, well, it's beyond.
Tommy Robinson, 150,000 people demonstrating.
They say about 500,000, but never mind, You can see that there are reactions, I even saw a demonstration for Israel in Spain, of all countries. You'll be surprised to hear that. Small one, but still.
I mean, look, in the UK, the way things are going, it wouldn't be a surprise if Reform emerged as the biggest party after the next general elections.
Okay.
Nigel Farage is on a tear.
Yeah, well, but that's not my point or the main point, but that's a point here that as much as current decisions are being made because of domestic issues or considerations, it could be the reverse one of them later on. I guess in France it's obvious. I mean, let's face it. I mean, here you talk about 2 years from now. In England, you talk about 4 years from now or something like that.
France cannot get a government going.
Well, that's French. I mean, used to be about Italy in the old days. Now it moves to France. I
think, don't they have their fourth prime minister in 5 years?
Something like that. It's the Third Republic revisited. Put it this way.
And they cannot pass a budget. So that's all right. But
let me make another point here on a bigger level, if you want, a deeper kind of thought in that sense. Look, there's no question that the fact that the struggle of Palestinians against Israel, terrorists, murders, others, has become the voice of such diverse elements of public opinion. As Jewish people, as Israelis, that is something that people outside of Israel and the Jewish world don't always understand. That is playing to the thinking, which is a typical and traditional Jewish thinking. And you think about it exactly in a day like that, the New Year, which is a soul-searching day and all that, that Jews in Israel are being pushed to what we always consider to be the way people wanted us to be. Almost like a pariah, something in the corner of the world. And I think that altogether, from an historic perspective, it is going to play in ways that may not be anticipated by those who do it. You will see stronger movement. There are Jews who are against Israel, and we hear them and see them, but they are really a small minority. Much more impact of people coming to Israel, investing in Israel, moving their businesses to Israel, and the reaction.
What you're saying is a sense of persecution, which the Jews have historically.
Exactly, and I was exactly coming to use the word. I mean, the more look, we have an Hebrew old expression: the more you torture them, the stronger they get about the Jews. So. Altogether,
I've heard that from many friends. There is this sense of a history that goes not just goes not just to the Holocaust, but goes to the pogroms in the Russian Empire, that goes to the Spanish Inquisition.
Exactly. You mentioned Inquisition, Spain. The immediate reaction in Spain to the anti-Semitic statements of Pedro Sanchez was, it is not 1492. But let me develop it to the other side, to the Palestinians now. They may think the Palestinians and those who support them, they are now coming to the top of the mountain. Or what else? And you know what? What if nothing happens? What if nothing happens, which is going to be a possibility? So what? People recognize your so-called state. Governments recognize your state, including very important countries, of course. And then nothing happens on the ground. No change. So that also could lead to changes in opinion and perception. So we are now at a situation which is very, very fragile, very flexible.
Okay.
It may seem that the tide is against Israel, even though the Israelis achieved all these military victories. Okay, the tide politically seems to be against them, but this is not a set up permanent tide. That's what I'm trying to say.
Understood. So let's take a step back and let's talk about how Israel And you mentioned the Trade Union Congress used to be in favor of Israel and has now switched. So let us talk about how Israel lost in the court of public opinion. And you would agree, and you've called these people nutters, Ben Gvir and Smotrich, that the representatives of the Israeli government have not covered themselves with glory. They have made statements that are extreme. They have made statements that are discriminatory, that they have made statements in support of genocide. And people watch this and say, hang on a minute, what's going on here?
Yeah, but what's going on here is much deeper than idiotic statements of some stupid, lunatic Israelis, ministers or otherwise, okay?
Yeah.
Look, you take the TUC. The Labour Party gradually moved away from all kinds of positions in a process of 30, 40, 50 years. I think that the last pro-Israel Labour Prime Minister was Jim Callahan. No, sorry, Tony Blair.
Tony Blair.
New Labour, but he was New Labour.
Yeah.
The old Labour was Jim Callahan. Remember him? Late
Gordon Brown wasn't anti-Israel either.
I said he was the last pro-Labour, pro-Israel.
But Gordon Brown wasn't anti-Israel either.
No, but he was already, playing to a constituency that changed, I mean, because Tony Blair, of course, but that was the New Labour, so to speak. And now we talk about a different Labour Party. And the TUC, look, take London, okay? And I know London.
So do I.
Yeah, I know. So you will understand what I'm going to say. You go to East London. So what do you think happened there? What happened there was a reaction to Ben Gvir and Smotrich, as stupid as these two are? No. Different people. East London used to be the homeland of the Jews of London, Redbridge, Ilford, Stamford Hill,
I lived in East London, next to Spitalfields Market on 40.
Yeah, okay. So
that used to be the Huguenot quarter, then it became the Jewish quarter, and then it became the Bangladeshi
and then
quarter.
1/3 of the Tottenham Spurs, which is not my team, I'm an Arsenal fan, 1/3 of the people watching their games in the 30s were Jews, maybe today 3%. So,
I mean, Daniel Levy, the chair of Tottenham,
that's
is
the symbolic change. You
Jewish.
see, that's the change. And imagine if Mamdani will be elected mayor of New York. So these are processes which were speeded up. Here is the point that you asked.
Mamdani will be elected mayor of New York.
Probably he will. I'm not sure, but we'll see. But look, these are processes.
By the way, there is a piece by a Republican from Texas on Mamdani, which, if you haven't read, Joseph, you must read.
And why should I read it? What does it say?
It is a critique of Mamdani.
I would imagine.
But look, and there are supporters of Mamdani, and I think one should read both their arguments.
I'm in New York now, so I hear it. But look, let me go on. Look, so the point really is that processes have been there for all kinds of. I just mentioned the demographic one, but there are others that were Israelis. But they did not care beyond. Look, you don't need me to tell you what I think about Ben Gvir's model.
To cut you short, what you're saying is demography is destiny, and as the population,
one of
Muslim
the
populations.
I used one example. We don't have days to talk about it today, and hours. That's one example. But look, that's a fact. That's a fact. Look, you take France. In the 1950s, the French Socialist Party was the bastion of support for Israel. All these people.
That's true.
Yeah, and they changed. It's not the same Socialist Party. So you have an ideological shift also. You have this combination.
You have a demographic shift, number one. Then you have an ideological shift.
Yeah, and you have also the coalition that was created between the progressives, the woke, the leftists, and the Islamists, which is based on anti-Westernism. Middle of all that. There was, I don't know if you know him, Martin Bright, who used to be the editor of the New Statesman. In 2008, he wrote a famous article about it. And then nothing, look, so these are all processes, and I can go on and on. So what I try to tell you is, we talk here about a combination of factors.
Yeah.
Where is the responsibility of leadership in Israel, though? And I should say, when you are prime minister like Netanyahu since 2009, basically for 6 years.
The longest serving prime minister of Israel.
There's an interruption of over a year or so, okay, but most of the time. And you are clever enough, and he is intelligent
He's
enough
clever.
to realize what is happening. Your obligation, your responsibility is to try to find ways to slow it down, to delay it, to gain time, to re-cement the bipartisan coalition. And he did not do that. So is that the reason? No. This is the outcome of what happened and his inability to change it. The processes have started a long time ago.
So you've mentioned Bibi Netanyahu, and that brings me on to another point.
Your favorite topic, I know it. We have been around for many times,
So, I mean, the podcast, the most successful British politics podcast that has thousands of viewers and listeners in the US, called The Rest is Politics.
Yeah.
Alistair Campbell, Tony Blair's former spin doctor, and Rory Stewart, the former Tory MP, both of them appear in that podcast. Yeah. And they have finally, after 2 years, accused Israel of genocide. They have condemned the invasion of Gaza City. And these are not anti-Israel figures. And they have certainly been extremely aghast at the strikes in Qatar. And others have claimed that both the IDF chief and the Mossad chief were against these strikes. So educate us from an Israeli prism as to what is going on. Is Bibi Netanyahu listening to these voices?
There is no genocide in Gaza. This is nonsense. Look, it's the only genocide that after which the population grows in this place. Look, let's be honest about the happening in Gaza. Mm-hmm. Terrible things are happening in Gaza. Terrible things are happening altogether. They started on the 7th of October, 2023. And
the casualty figures are crazy.
Let me answer to that. That's a good point. I mean, legitimate point.
Yeah.
2,403 Americans were killed in Pearl Harbor. So a measurable response should have been 2,403 Japanese. 3 million Japanese were lost, as opposed to 116,000 Americans. And let alone examples about Britain and, Dresden.
You haven't mentioned Hiroshima and Nagasaki. You've been very kind.
Look, I don't even want to mention that. It's so obvious. But how many people remember what happened on the 9th of March 1945 in Tokyo, when 100,000 Japanese were killed because Curtis LeMay Air Force used incendiary bombs against the wooden houses of Tokyo?
So the firebombing of Tokyo actually killed more people than Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
People in one night. So what I'm trying to tell you is not that if they did it, it's okay. If Israel does or doesn't do. Let's get into a real definition of what genocide is all about, as opposed to the trepidations, the terrible tragedies of a war. Mm-hmm. And by the way, President Trump said something very interesting this week. The only genocide that he knows about was the 7th of October. Why? Because that was an attempt to really kill everybody that could be killed.
Yeah, I mean, this is what many people have forgotten, how horrific the attacks were.
But that's my point.
On 7th of October. And another thing, very quick point. And also how Hamas is sworn to the destruction of Israel and the elimination of the Jewish people.
Without any specification as to what population in Israel and so on and so forth. So look, I'm sorry about that Tony Blair agrees with him, but that's for him to say, And by the way, look, podcast A or podcast B, I don't know. I mean, look, there are other kinds of podcasts and all this. Yours, for example, you have a great one and you have a good discussion here. We discuss it. We don't come out with specific blames and then we have to,
No, we don't follow the superstar model of two British people.
Both of them from Oxford, opining about the world. A superstar and superficial. Now, let's start with the word super altogether. Look, I need to tell you one thing here. It pains me. Look, nobody wants to live in a feeling that he is part of a pariah entity, of an hated collective. But on the other end, and I'll be terrible now in what I say, but that's exactly the point. If you're Jewish, you might say, what, we are back to where we used to be all the time. in terms of the way people look at us.
Mm.
So I need to tell you, I'm therefore more impressed with all those shows of support for Israel that I see, and there are a lot of them. And of course, look, this public opinion in the West, do they really help the Palestinians? Do they really help the Palestinians? What did they do for the Palestinians? Where was the support of any meaningful group of Westerners for the Palestinians in Gaza? I forget about Greta and all these ships. I mean, you're talking about, where was it? What did the TUC do for Palestinian workers? What did he do for them? They supported BDS, which was against the interest of Palestinians because it prevented cooperation of them with the Israeli economy that was beneficial to them. So look.
Okay, let's talk about something we can both agree upon. All right, that Israel has to.
It will not be rare, by the way. It will not be rare.
No, we agree on a lot of things. So that's not entirely true. But okay, let's say that at least containing, if not eliminating, Hamas is an Israeli strategic priority. Fine, everyone gets it. Hamas is a fanatical organization, or at least a lot of people get it. Yes. The question I have for you is simple. Will Israeli actions achieve that goal? Will going into Gaza City, causing casualties, achieve that goal? Or are you creating more volunteers to be martyrs?
I write a lot about that, and I'm telling you specifically, the war should end as we talked yesterday, today, tomorrow. Israel, for its own good, should declare unilateral ceasefire and say we have.
There we agree. You see, Joseph said that would be rare, but both of us are one mind here.
There are caveats. Listen,
Sure.
You know me, there are caveats. Israel agrees to a unilateral ceasefire of, say, 2 weeks. During these 2 weeks, we expect all the hostages to be freed unconditionally. And if not, we give you 3 days more before we go to the real attack on the military targets of Hamas and once and for all demolish them. And that's the end of the war. That's the end of the war.
Why aren't you defense minister, Joseph?
No, well, I'm too old at any rate to be anything right now. You're the only one who still could say,
Oh, you still have the energy of an energizer bunny.
Yeah, well, I'm losing my energy after I watch Arsenal not winning against Manchester City. I mean,
they got an equalizer, hey? They got an equalizer in the last minute.
They invested over £200 million and they're still not in the first place. Look, okay. So let me tell you something about this. To defend what's happening in Gaza doesn't mean, and I have to make it very clear that every activity of Israel, I should tell you, I support it. Have there been issues in which, of course, made mistakes? That's what happened. But if you want to achieve peace, you need to destroy those who are against peace. And Hamas has to be destroyed. And if Hamas is underground with hundreds of miles of kilometers of tunnels, you have to do that. You have to do that. Did Israelis do everything always right? No. Obviously, no. But to say now that, look at what's happening in Gaza and detach it from the entire background, I mean, that's stupid because in the end of the day, it will not lead us to any useful solution. No one can expect Israel to just leave it. Gaza should not become again a zone of hostilities against Israel, which, by the way, it's in the interest of Egypt, not just Israel, in the interest of everybody else. And I appreciate that Arab states issued a statement, a few weeks ago, that this is what they also think about Hamas. I understand it. I appreciate it. I want to keep the Abraham Accords. I want to keep the sense that we have to move toward peaceful solution. And I will have huge differences with Netanyahu, even more than what I have now, over the political solution. There's no question, there has to be.
Okay.
But if the entire, let me just please, my friend, if the entire dialogue is based on genocide and all that, and you push Israel to the corner, When you are in the corner, you're more extreme.
Understood. So one part of what you say is that Israel needs a military victory against Hamas. Israel has to destroy the infrastructure of Hamas and make sure that October 7, 2023, never occurs again. Okay, understood. But at the same time, the solution is partly internal, because if you have cabinet members like Smotrich and Ben-Gvir, there will be less faith.
He has to get rid. Look, Netanyahu has to get rid of them, but he doesn't want to do it for his own reasons. So that's very bad. Yeah. Yes. He has to have new elections. Israel has to have new elections. Whatever the result will be, it will be. No debate about that. Yeah.
Okay, so again, we agree there too. But so then I follow up with another question. So on the one hand, you have France, UK, Australia, and Canada recognizing Palestine. It's symbolic, and it gives a lot of oxygen to the Palestinian cause, and say negative oxygen or maybe hydrogen to Israel. And on the other hand, now the Gulf states have turned skeptical about Israel. The Abraham Accords are in cold storage. And there is a Pakistani-Saudi military pact, which I was told...
By the way, ask America about that, not Israel. That's a signal from MBS to Trump, not to Israel.
Yeah. Okay, tell us more.
Look, Saudi Arabia needs Pakistan for its security. I mean, it's nonsense. Saudi Arabia sends a signal to America. We may have other options. That's the way I see it. What can Pakistan do?
Is it a backdoor to? Is it Saudi Arabia's backdoor to China?
I was about to say it's a signal to Trump. We have an alliance with Pakistan. Tomorrow it could be with the big brother, and. At the same time, but think about it also at the same time, what is the reaction of Mr. Modi? It will be the opposite result. It will be even closer relations with Israel. So
that is true. I mean, look, one of my friends who's ex-MI6 said that this alliance is bad news for the three I's. And he said Jewish Israel, Shia Iran, and Hindu India. And he said that because it's a Sunni alliance, and it resuscitates that idea that the Ummah are one community, the Sunni Ummah. And now Saudi Arabia formally has access to cheap manpower from Pakistani mercenaries.
Yeah, but that's that's a message to Donald J. Trump and his people that could lead them to, by the way, I'm not sure that it would not lead them to the conclusion that they have to put more pressure on Israel to appease the Saudis. That could also happen. But it could lead them also to the opposite reaction, that the Saudis are not trustworthy. By the way, Mr. Modi sent a very nice Rosh Hashanah blessings to Israel in Hebrew and, to the Israeli people and all this, So look, here is, a war is something, it's one of the greatest, start a war is the most unknown something in world history. You know how you start a war. How you end it, it's something else altogether. We are not yet in the end of this war, because this war is not just Gaza. Many other things, as you yourself said. And Israel is the Houthis, the Hezbollah. Maybe there will be a security arrangement with al-Shara in Syria, which will break this Sunni connection, or at least create a schism there. I doubt it, but we'll see.
I mean, in Syria, basically, it's Mossad versus MIT, the Turkish intelligence agency, and it's like the Arsenal-Man City match, isn't it?
It's Arsenal-Tottenham, if at all, but
it's Arsenal-Tottenham. It's even worse.
Come on, that's the rivalry.
That's the derby.
Tottenham, yeah.
North London derby.
The lonely club of North London, Tottenham Hotspur, yeah. But look, now I lost half of your viewers, but I'm sorry about that. But look, let me tell you. What can I tell you? I used to live, when I did my PhD in London, next to Old Ivory Stadium. So I became an Arsenal fan. I mean, that's the only reason. What do I know?
Well, I love Thierry Henry and Arsene Wenger too. It's hard not to love them.
Arsene Wenger was a genius until he became less of a genius. They never know how to retire sometimes.
Yes, they should have retired a little earlier.
Yeah. So what I'm trying to tell you is, let me develop a thought here. So a lot of things are still fluid. Saudi Arabia and Pakistan. What will be the Indian reaction? Who knows? Let's see. The point is that brings me to what I think about the role of Israel here. There is, okay, so we did with Iran, brilliant. I give it to Netanyahu. That's the decision he made. He carried it through. What happened in Syria? With Hezbollah? What happened on the military side with Hamas is success, but the altogether situation is what we discussed. So how do we move from there? And he still has a lot of bargaining chips in his hands. So all I can tell you is my hope. I can only express a hope that he will do the right thing. So, he'll move in a direction of with his bargaining chips. Whether it will happen or not, well, for the
All right.
episode.
On that optimistic note, Shana Tova again, and
Shana
thank
Tova
you
to you as well, my friend.
So much for making the time today. Really appreciate it from the
It's
bottom
always
of
my pleasure. Look, your request is my commands always. Take care, my friend.
Much too kind. Thank you.
Too. Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Join the conversation at Fair Observer and subscribe to our YouTube channel.